Welcome everyone to our Ask Us Anything session. This is really to introduce Aerospace Xelerated to everybody and help answer any of your questions about the program and what we're up to. So today it's me, Xenia, Program Manager at Aerospace Xelerated, together with Nicola Bates, the Managing Partner, and Jacqueline Davidson, the Program Director. Thanks for being here, everybody. So Aerospace Xelerated, just to kick off, it's a 3-month program and based in the UK, but open to companies globally. We're looking for seed to Series A startups working on autonomy and AI solutions. So we've got 6 core buckets: assured autonomy, autonomous navigation, generative design, smart maintenance, adaptive learning, and reduced workload. We've also got a separate bucket for novel AI applications that may not fit into those 6. So I'd love to hear from those startups as well. So today we'll cover a little bit about program structure, curriculum, investment, kind of corporate access, and any other questions you might have. To kick off, maybe we can talk a little bit about the application. I know this week we've gotten a lot of questions from startups about how to best fill out the application, how to make yourself stand out. So I can kick off a little bit on that. The application form is very extensive, but it's really important for us so we can make an informed decision on whether you're a good fit for this program or not. From a previous cohort, there was a founder that gave some excellent advice on how to apply, and he got in, so it's worth listening to this kind of advice. And one thing he said, for example, was be aerospace specific, make it easy for us to envision a POC with you. That's really important. Another one was make sure you're really talking about the solution you have for this industry. And another thing is also highlight why this accelerator is strategically important for you and what you'd like to get out of it. So I think those are all very important things. Another question that we got was, what does the investment from Boeing mean? Could you talk a little bit about the £100,000 safe note? So I'll hand it over to Nick and Jacqueline to answer that one.
Sure. Yeah, so it obviously is a direct investment from the Boeing company. And as Ksenia pointed out, it is a safe investment. So it's just a simple agreement for future equity, which means that what we're really doing is providing the capital up front. And we'll deal with the conversion to equity at a later date when your company's a little bit more mature. So for us, it's really about being able to provide you that investment really quickly. And in terms of the timeline for that investment, we hope to get the cash through to you sort of mid to end January, so just a few weeks after the program has actually started. And that's really important to us as well, that we're able to get you through the process, do our due diligence. So it is a real investment from the Boeing company. You will have to go through the due diligence process, but we try to do that in a very shortcutted fashion so that we can get the funds to you as quickly as possible.
And just to add to that too, once you do receive the Boeing investment, you will be loaded into the supplier database. So that investment comes with a lot more than just financial commitment. It does come with the opportunity to have ease of access to proof of concepts. So if there is the opportunity to do a proof of concept with Boeing, it makes that process a lot easier once you're loaded into our supply chain. And I will say too that our commitment is when we make those financial investments with a safe note, you are considered in our portfolio. So we are dedicated through portfolio development to help and support your business even beyond the 3-month program.
Amazing. Thank you, guys. And another question that we got that I think is worth kind of following up on, you mentioned due diligence. Does the due diligence happen during the selection process? And is it possible to participate even if one is not interested in the SAFE?
So I'll answer the second bit first. Yes, it is possible to participate even if you don't want to take the investment at this stage. Our hope is that you get to work with us, you love working with us, and we get an opportunity to invest in your company at a later date. In terms of the due diligence process, I suppose, if I'm honest, it really starts from the first contact that we have with you in terms of our due diligence process. That said, the formal due diligence will happen once you sign the program agreement and indicate to us that you want to move ahead with the investment. So it does happen in December. We know that's a busy time for everyone, but I will give you forewarning that the quicker that obviously you can get all of that data back to us, the quicker we can get you through that process and get the cash out to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing that. Got another question. So what does the application process look like? So we kicked off the application period this Monday, so 23rd of August. The application window is 5 weeks, so until the 26th of September, I believe that's 5 weeks. And there's several stages. So the first stage is really you sending in your application, filling it out. The program team will typically follow up, kind of set up a virtual meeting to get to know you and your business, and essentially at this stage figure out whether you're in scope for the program or not. As for the long listing, you'll hear back from us before or by the 25th of October. And from then we continue having follow-up conversations. This is with Boeing and industry partner, technical experts, kind of strategic commercial conversations as well. And then shortlisting happens and we select 20 startups to be invited to our selection day, which is early December. And then that's it. We select 8 to 10 startups for the cohort and kick off the program in January 2022. So that's us. I think we have one question that we got through the type form is, we have been developing an AI engine for the purpose of a manufacturing made smarter marketplace and believe it could be tuned for aerospace. Would a project that has had grant funding but no revenues qualify? Nick, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, potentially. Obviously, we'd need to have more specific details on that. But because there is no revenue is not a barrier in this program at all. What we're really interested in is obviously in the longer term potential. So while I say that it doesn't have to have revenue right now, obviously this is, as we've seen from previous two cohorts, it's a very, very competitive program. So do get in touch with the program team. There are sessions available to have one-to-ones in advance of putting in your application. Do make use of that because they will really help you shape the sort of details and help you pull out the sort of details that we really need to see to ensure your application is as competitive as it can be.
Absolutely. And we've had other questions also around, I'm applying and what kind of thing do you want to see besides us being a seed to Series A stage? How else can we best fit into the program? And it's really demonstrating traction that you've had, even if it's not in aerospace. Talk to us about what you've done in other sectors as well. So that would be really great to see through the application process. Another question was around eVTOL. So we are an Indian deep tech startup. We're working on urban air mobility and building eVTOL. Are we eligible for this program to get into the accelerator?
So if this question, I'm not seeing the questions, but if this question is about a mobility platform, like a vehicle, then no, that's not the sort of company that we're looking for during this program. We are, the sort of startups that we, are likely to be able to support are those more software focused companies.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nick. And one other question we have here is more of a technical question. If you can answer it, it's what TRL level do companies need to have to be accepted? Or if there is even a TRL level that you're looking for specifically?
Yeah, so we like to see normally TRL 3 and above. However, I say that with the caveat, I don't want to preclude anyone because we have taken companies where, they just recently incorporated 3 weeks prior. So I would say really focus in on the applicability of your solution and to the pain point of the aerospace sector today. I know that, the aerospace industry is ever evolving and ever changing and is more open and adaptable to change now more than ever. So I say TRL with the, understanding that even if it is outside of that and you think you have a real pain point to solve, then definitely apply and definitely get in touch with the program team, and we would be happy to consider your application.
Yeah, and just to add to that, if you are in that situation where you are, a little bit earlier, really think about what you would like to achieve in that 12-week window, and what we could really do to help you, because obviously, it is whilst you would be part of our portfolio going forward, it is a very concentrated effort through those 12 weeks. So what we don't want to do is put you in there if you're not ready for that, for that intense 12-week experience. We will continue to run programs. This is not, a one-off. So please think about whether, whether you're really ready to make that commitment to this program, because it is an intense experience.
Absolutely. Thank you both. And here we have another question. Is the accelerator format hybrid, both virtual and on location? Yes, it is hybrid. We would love to meet you all in person and make those kind of industry connections also in person. In an ideal world, that's what will happen, and that's how we envision it. We are always looking at kind of government guidelines, both here in the UK and abroad, to make sure that it is a possibility that it can happen. We will see what happens January 2022, of course, keeping a close eye on that. But yes, both a mix of virtual and in person, particularly at the beginning of the program, when we're starting to build those industry connections. But yes, it's not every week. We know you need to run your business. So it's really kind of a little bit here, a little bit there, and we'll kind of let you know towards the start of the program what that really looks like.
And if I can add to that too, I think, I saw Matt's comment in the chat box about, shout out to this being an all-female panel. And I think that's the key element of why we're thinking of making it more adaptable to being hybrid, because in the last cohort, we saw a significant increase in the amount of women that applied. So we definitely don't want to eliminate anyone from being able to, participate regardless of whatever their situation is. We're really looking for the best and the brightest out there, whatever their situations may be, and we'll work with you to make sure that you can participate.
Absolutely, Jacqueline. Thank you for pointing that out. That's very true. And of course, it's a global program. So we're going to try to make it work for everybody, no matter where you are. We had a very global cohort last year with teams in the US and Australia, and that made for a really exciting 12 weeks, definitely. Let's talk. Okay, so there's a question about industry partners and sponsors for this upcoming cohort. Nick, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So yes, I did see the question that the ATI aren't leading the program this year. So what we've done, and really is a testament to the success of our previous two cohorts, and really all credit to those teams for supporting us in that regard. It was always our vision that the ATI Boeing Accelerator would transition to be an industry-led initiative. And that's just happened a lot quicker than any of us kind of expected. So we continue to have support from UK government to run this program, but it is an industry-led program. And over the coming weeks, we will be announcing the industry partners that will be joining us this year. It will still have an aerospace focus, absolutely. But if you look at those, the themes that we have created, we have created those in conjunction with our industry partners that we'll be able to release those names in the next few weeks.
Absolutely, thank you. Another question is, we get this question often, do you accept 2 potential competitors onto the program? What I would say is once applications come in and we start looking at them, it's inevitable that there will be overlaps under each theme. But we, as a selection committee, we have a ranking kind of exercise where we rate, assess each startup to avoid this happening. So we really want to give an opportunity for every startup to collaborate with Boeing or industry partners. And so to avoid having like 8 to 10 smart maintenance companies, for example, we do this exercise to make sure we're selecting the best of the best and kind of have a varied cohort as well.
Yeah, and just in addition to that, Ksenia, I would also, if you think that you're potentially competitive with any of the teams from our previous 2 cohorts, please take a look at that as well and think about how you would differentiate yourselves. yourselves from them as well, or how you would work with them, given that they're a little bit ahead of you in this process. It would be really clever to think about how you could actually partner with some of those teams that we already have in the portfolio through our accelerator program.
That's a great point. And you can find out more about our portfolio companies on the website. So we've got it all there. If you have any questions, you can obviously email us, but all the information is there. Okay, let's have a little look. Another question we often get is the accelerator focusing on software, hardware, or both? We are a software business with hardware elements. Are we still in scope for the program? So yes, we've explicitly said we're looking for software businesses for this program. Software, because of the time constraints, it's 12 weeks. And we want to start exploring POC opportunities within this time frame. That said, there have been software startups with some hardware elements that have applied previously. Please, if you think that you fit under these themes, but you do have some kind of hardware elements, do apply. We do want to see your application. Just to follow on from that, say you don't get a spot on the accelerator, we'd love to help you as we can and introduce you to the wider ecosystem to see if there's opportunities elsewhere. I don't know if Nick and Jacqueline have any additional thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think that, whenever, as you said, we are very much focused on the software end. That said, we have had some teams that have been successful in the program that are not software at all. So please do get in touch with us and have a chat if it's something really interesting. We're more than happy to consider it. We can certainly pull things through in terms of a wild card kind of theme as well. So, do get in touch with us, talk it through with the program team. I think the thing to keep in mind always is that we really want to be able to do something to support you and accelerate you during that 12-week window. So if you have a pretty defined kind of vision of what that would be in that 12-week window, then that would really help you to be successful in the application process.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, time is your biggest resource. So, at the end of the 12 weeks, if you don't have a clear ask of what you could get out of it, then I think, we want to make sure we're mindful that we are helping you in the best way possible. So hardware tends to come with a challenge as time goes, especially with the COVID pandemic and everything that, the world is facing today, with logistics being a problem and a pain point and this being a global program. However, that doesn't limit you if you have a very specific application. So just take a look at the themes, and then we're happy to chat if there's anything that you're unsure of.
Yes, and on that note, we're running office hours. So if you look at our website, you can book in, talk to the program team, tell us about what you're building. We can kind of help guide you, direct you, and answer any questions. So do that as well. Everything is on our website. Okay, so it sounds like you're only interested in software AI technologies. Is that correct? Or are you open to other innovations? Yes, the theme for this cohort is AI and autonomy. You can find out more on our website. So have a look there. Let me just look at other questions that we've got. Let's have a look. Okay. How advanced should the proof of concepts be? Do you expect a functioning prototype? That's an excellent question. Nick, Jacqueline, you want to take that one?
No, not necessarily, because obviously we're not just looking for proof of concepts in the sense of, being able to deliver, a trial or a proof of concept to an end customer, for example. Boeing has such a range of opportunities. We have our Boeing Research and Technology Group, that look at very early stage proof of concepts and technology demonstrations. So it may be in that space that you want to test the technology, maybe with some supervision from some of the Boeing experts or our Boeing champions, or equally it could be something that's ready to go. And we're kind of open to any of those things.
I would also say there's many layers of our supply chain. A lot of our business is in our supply chain. So think about it in the sense of if your application is further along and down into the supply chain, we're happy to make those introductions because, if it's even a small, proof of concept there that can grow into something larger once you get up to the OEM level, that is very, we're happy to support that as well. Whatever is making the aerospace ecosystem better is a win for us. So regardless of how small or how big, there's really no limitation there.
Absolutely. Thank you both for that. Just have a quick look. Beyond the industry partners on Aerospace Xelerated, will we have the chance to connect with other aerospace companies? You've touched on this a little bit, but maybe you guys can talk a bit more about that.
Yeah, so really from our perspective, we want to use this, use this program and these 12 weeks with you to really supercharge your network. So we will provide you access to as many people across the aerospace industry as we think is relevant. We're very conscious of trying to help you guys from the point of view that we don't want to waste a lot of your time with a lot of conversations. So during the 12-week process, you will be exposed to lots of mentors, and not just from aerospace. So, the program team also pulled together, some really high quality mentors and experts, from the business end rather than the aerospace or technical end. And those are hugely valuable for you as well. And all of those people there, and when they come in, their job is to really help act as a kind of a filter or a connection point, to help understand where the Boeing company just on its own is, eye-wateringly huge. So being able to connect you with lots of people there, but the more specific you can be about who you want to talk to or who your customer focus is, the more that we can help you. Obviously, Boeing has a huge supply chain right across the world. And if you can say, we want to talk to this company in this location, or we want to talk to this individual, just let us know, and we'll be able to, through our internal networks, be able to reach out and find the best way to get you connected into those people.
And I'll say too, I think each program is bespoke and unique in and of itself. So it's not to say that our, mentor list or our Rolodex of contacts is specifically baked into each program. It is very specific to the 10 companies that we choose to take in and we choose to work with. And a huge kudos goes out to our program team for really finding some of the best and the brightest to be able to mentor. And it's the mentors that we've had in the past beyond Boeing are not, specific to our Aero Accelerated mentors. They are really specific to each cohort in and of themselves.
Absolutely. Thank you. We've got a question here. Can you give us an example of things that we could tackle during the accelerator during the 12 weeks? And should we put this into our application? I'm going to assume this is about program curriculum and what's going to be part of it during the 12 weeks. So we have a pre-program survey where we ask you what your needs are. We really want to be able to deliver and help you during the 12 weeks. So it could be anything around product, marketing, sales, fundraising, business model, like literally anything. We ask you, you let us know, and then we shape the program curriculum based off that. At the beginning, you've got kind of 3 weeks of meeting industry partners and meeting with your champions. Then you've got all of the other kind of workshops and sessions we have planned. Towards the end, we do a lot of kind of meetings with investors. So speed dating style mentoring, for example. We have a demo day at the end. So these are just some of the components of the program. And yes, so we'll ask you that before the program starts. Make sure we shape it based on your needs.
And I think if you're talking about shaping from a proof of concept standpoint, because that's kind of where my head went right away. I was chuckling a little bit because I was like, how much time do you have? I'll give you loads of things. But no, I will say something we've done in the most recent cohort that you will be afforded to this one as well is our champions will come in and share some of their pain points that they're having. And so you will get direct access and insights to subject matter experts that are working on real life applications, because we don't want to Nick's point, waste your time. We don't want to send you on a road show throughout our business and pitch to numerous different stakeholders. We want to bring the stakeholders to you, have them tell their pain points so you guys can do what you do best, and that's innovate. So I think, hopefully that'll make your lives a lot easier throughout the program, and hopefully it'll make it so you can think about how to adapt your technology to a real life pain point rather than the reverse.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jacqueline. Let me have a investment question. Does Boeing usually do follow-on investments?
We have done. Yes, and it really depends. So there's there's kind of two options. One is a very simple extension of the SAFE, and the other is a full equity investment off the get-go. So it really depends on the situation. The key thing though is, and this is again where the more specific you can be during that 12-week process or program, the better, because what we really need to do is very, very quickly get you that traction within the Boeing company, because as part of our investment process for follow-ons through either route, is really to make sure that we have established that pull from the business. So it's not just us saying we think this is a great investment, but we also need the business to be saying this is a technology that we just can't live without. We absolutely need this, and we want to continue to invest. So that's where the quicker that we can do that, the quicker we can get into a position where we would be able to make that follow-on investment.
Thanks, Nick. During this webinar, we actually have an alumni with us. We've got Simon Morris from Hiiroc, who's joined us, who will shed light on his experience on the program. So let me just bring him in. Hopefully he sees that on the screen now. Give him a second. There he is. Simon, can you hear us? We can see you. How are you doing?
Yeah, very well indeed. How are you?
Very well. Thank you so much for joining our Ask Us Anything session.
It's my pleasure.
Awesome. So first, before we start asking you any questions, who are you and what does Hiiroc do?
So I'm Simon Morris. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer of Hiiroc Limited, and we are developing a new technology for clean generation of hydrogen from hydrocarbons. Plus synthetic aviation fuel as well. The other thing.
Awesome, thank you. Let's go back to the very beginning maybe. What was your motivation for joining Aerospace Xelerated, formerly ATI Boeing Accelerator?
The motivation was that we were at a point in our development where we felt that exposure to some very large companies with the right sort of strategy towards decarbonisation, the use of hydrogen in their industry, and the view that aerospace, even though it was more long-term for hydrogen, that we had this idea around the potential for synthetic aviation fuels. In terms of where we were as a company, we just felt it was the right time to be starting that engagement with these companies at that point in our development.
Amazing. Yeah, I still remember our initial conversations before you joined the program. And how was your overall experience during the 12 weeks? Any highlights that you want to share?
I think the whole experience was fantastic. I mean, of the team, I was probably the most skeptical about doing the accelerator. I've been involved in a number of accelerators before, which hadn't really accelerated anything. This was vastly different. This was something where it was full on. I mean, there were the sessions where we were doing the Boeing week in particular. Obviously, with a lot of folks at Boeing over in Seattle, there was a very late finish, sort of 2-3 nights running. It was really full on, but the exposure to people who you normally wouldn't get the chance to talk to, the engagement from the people that we spoke to was incredible, and the real interest. It wasn't, I always felt it was going to be a bit of a box ticking exercise, maybe even a bit of greenwashing from the companies that we were dealing with, but it wasn't like that at all. It was real interest and real engagement, and it really worked.
Amazing. And was there anything new that you learned, maybe around team culture or sales or anything like that?
Well, not being the brightest spark, I learned something every day anyway. So yeah, we learned a lot. I mean, particularly as we've grown very quickly as a company. I mean, when we started on the accelerator, we were 7 people. We're now 35 people. So just about the operational side, about making sure that you have the right approaches towards diversity when you're recruiting. Those sort of things were invaluable because they're the things when you take your eye off the ball when you're building a company. You're so focused on the technology, you're so focused on fundraising, you forget the things that can trip you up as you go along. So to have those sessions were particularly useful, yes. But yeah, I learned something every day because you're starting from a very low point. So.
Oh, we're glad to hear that. I know we're very happy to hear that. So we've got a lot of attendees on this call, people tuning in. What would be your advice for those wanting to apply to this next cohort?
If you're going to apply, take it seriously. I think that once we took the decision that we were going to go for the accelerator, it became a high priority. There's no point going at it half-hearted. If you're going to do the application, really work at the application, really think about the application you're putting in and make sure you give it everything. Otherwise, don't bother because the competition is so high. You've got to give it your best shot. And then when you're on it, you've got to give it your best shot again. I think that as a company, I think we normally had at least 2 or 3 people on every session. And I think the 2 or 3 people that were involved in that got a lot out of it. So if you're going to do it, but go full tilt. Don't hold anything back. And yeah, I mean, we really enjoyed it. I've made a lot of very good friends through the process as well. So I would recommend it very highly.
Thank you very much. And one of the questions we got from our attendees before also was, how was the post-program support? And of course, we can talk about it, but maybe you can talk about it more from kind of this alumni perspective. What did you feel about the post-program support and kind of how we're supporting you now, even today?
Well, again, I think it's important that you engage with the people you're dealing with. I think if you don't fully engage and get to know the people, and understand what they're trying to achieve from the program, you're not going to get much out of it. I think if you put the time and effort into understanding what the companies themselves, the sponsor companies, are trying to achieve, then the support comes naturally because you're following the same path. So, I mean, for us, we've had GKN, Boeing, Rolls-Royce. We're talking to all 3 companies still. Various stages of investment or potential investment or collaboration, and the support from you folks, obviously the Meta folks, has been, well, just wonderful. I mean, am I going off script a bit here, Ksenia? I'm not sure. No, it's been fantastic.
Amazing. No, thank you so much for sharing that experience. We've got, if you have any questions for Simon, please just pop them in the Q&A because he's still around. He can answer anything for you from an alumni perspective. We've got another alumni on the line. I don't know if Andy is still here. No, I don't think so. But he asked a question. He said, do you work with other accelerators and programs in the ecosystem that are designed to facilitate pathways for early companies? Nick, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, so we do work with a range of other programs, and for us, and this just isn't in the UK, as Ksenia's pointed out. So Jacqueline and I spend an awful lot of time engaged with other programs and corporates that are in a similar position to us, that have maybe a slightly different slightly different focus or slightly different approach. And we work very collaboratively with everyone, and we're really open to working with anyone, and so we have no limits on that at our side, and it's really important to us. So even even this week, Jacqueline and I are in Kuwait, and we're talking to ecosystem kind of champions here, and we're always talking about our portfolio, potential opportunities, to work with our portfolio as well. So there's a whole range of people, whether that's through corporate networks, whether that's through our work in terms of supporting global ecosystems, or whether that's through just our work with our other Boeing colleagues internationally. It's very much the case that we want to try and find the best place to help you. And I know that even this week there's been a number of people who got got through to the long list or got through to the short list the last time and have got in touch with me again. And those teams, I have seen and we have, suggested other routes too, and maybe programs that suited them better if it wasn't, the right sort of company for us at the right time. I should say that when it comes to our, our final 10, a lot of that as well is focused on the choice of how do we get to that final 10. There's a big part of that that is about timing as well. It's about, do we have, upcoming priorities or opportunities for those 10 in that, in that 12-week window, which is fairly niche. So, those that have been, have gotten through to a long list or short list previously shouldn't be put off because they didn't make it to the final 10, because in this game, timing is everything as well. So please do get back in touch with us. I know that, we continue and the program team continues to talk to a very large number of applicants, even right from our first batch, those that didn't quite make it. We still continue to connect them. We try to keep them in mind. And one thing that is really powerful, as a piece of advice is, please do, set us up on your investor updates. Send us a quarterly note of where you've gotten to, what else you're working on, because that might just trigger something for us where we, where an opportunity has come across our desk. And it is difficult for us to keep track of everyone. So the more you can kind of keep in touch with us and keep in touch with the wider program team as well, we will keep you front of mind for different opportunities that may not be this accelerator program.
And just to add to Andy's question of how we work with other, similarly aligned industries or competitors or, other accelerator programs, I never fully, believe folks when they normally say, oh no, we're not competitors. And I really struggle with that, but at the end of the day, I'm being very serious in the sense that it's not a land grab. If you're talking about, very complex problems like sustainability or AI, autonomy, Boeing alone is not going to be able to solve those problems and those pain points, and not one individual entity is. 10 years from now, I might be wrong, but hey, that's my perspective right now. And I think at the end of the day, we need as much help as we can get to make our, world a better place tomorrow than it is today. So at the end of the day, while Boeing signs my paycheck, I work for you all. So how can we help you all make this a better solution, whether it's this accelerator, another accelerator, whether it's Boeing or whether it's another firm? We're happy to help.
Thank you both. And to echo what Nick said, whether you're an applicant from cohort 1 or cohort 2, we'd love to hear from you again. If you feel like you fit under these themes, we want to see how you've progressed over this last year or two, and we want to see how we can help. So definitely get in touch. There was a question around raising around in 2022. How can you help with that? Several elements go into this. I think for us, we have a very strong network. Nick's already talked about this a lot, but we have a very strong network of early stage investors and angels and VCs. We do mentoring with them. And also we help you, well, depending on what stage you are, of course, seed, series A, but we review your financial plan. We look at your fundraising strategy. We provide pitch training. We help you in any way we can, and then get you in front of investors so you're ready for when those meetings kind of take place. I don't know if Nick and Jacqueline want to say anything else to that.
Yeah, so I think that, there's obviously, Jacqueline and I are obviously, here from the corporate investing, perspective on that. But we also have, our venture partners in the program as well. So you've got access to, investors that are investing every day. They're looking at teams every single day. You've got the expertise of Will and Gabby, who have both been in your seat. They've both raised, they've both lived through it. So, and I think that what that does, and what you'll learn and see from us, and I think Simon can attest to this, we'll be brutally honest with you in terms of where we think you're at, what we think is a good strategy. But you won't just hear it from one person. It won't be that this is our view and that's the end. You'll hear it from a range of people, and I think that gives you the opportunity to really, get your head around the different perspectives on what that should look like and the sorts of things that you need to consider whenever you're going into a raise.
Just one more point too, I think Simon can probably highlight this a little bit more better than I can, but what we've seen as far as resources go, look to your own cohort. There's a lot of similarly aligned technologies that, you guys are all solving the same-ish problems and pain points, that we've seen a lot of partnerships within the cohort too. And that's been very successful for, how do you scale and how do you grow and how do you kind of think about problems and pain points around what is realistic to solve from your own business, but then how can you help solve a larger problem by combining your solution with another? So I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Simon, but I think partnerships within cohorts is a huge valuable asset too.
Yeah, I mean, we were on the cohort with a company called FICO. They introduced us to a guy that one of them had been at university with. We're now supporting him in an application for base funding. His technology is perfectly aligned with what we're doing within the synthetic fuel business. So we're also looking at potentially taking an investment in his company ourselves. So yeah, absolutely. And as I say, I'm still in touch with a lot of the people who were on the cohort with us, and our WhatsApp chat channel is still pinging away pretty much every day as well. So yeah, those collaborations were established during that first 3 months, but they're still going on, absolutely.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Simon. Yeah, there have been a lot of collaborations, a lot of introductions made through the cohort. So that's been really, really good. And we hope to kind of continue that through the next cohort and future programs as well. I've got a question here. Okay, so what level of strategic and technical support can we expect from Boeing and industry partners? Which teams and departments are usually involved? Nick, Jacqueline, you want to take that?
That's a pretty large question. So it really depends. In terms of you have, this program gives you full access to the Boeing company. It's not, in one specific department, it's not in one specific country. We have colleagues right across the world from every part of the business available for you. And that's, it's really down to you to tell us and help us prioritize where is best to spend your time during this program. If you need to chat, you want to chat with a Boeing lawyer, we can do that. You want to chat with a Boeing expert in a very niche technology, we can find them. We have such a range of people that we can, put hands on and bring through into this program. It really, does need to be driven by you. And I think that goes back to the point that Simon made, this will really be as successful as you commit to. The more that you can put into this, the more you can help us understand what it is that you need. And the much easier it is for us to be able to find that. And we start that process as soon as we start to read the applications. As soon as we start to read the applications coming through, we're immediately thinking, oh, we need that person, we need this person, we need, oh, here's a business unit that we haven't spoken to before. So the more that you can provide us, to begin that process and get those people lined up. What we learned through our first 2 cohorts was the sooner we can engage those Boeing experts in the selection process. So when I think of Simon's business, we had someone, an expert from inside the business, who was involved from day one in our selection process and has been the champion for the Hiiroc team the whole way through. It's them that's saying, we want to make a further investment in this team. We think they're awesome. And whenever that's coming from, the actual business unit, the Boeing expert, and they feel like they have been part of the process, they feel like they have skin in the game too, to make sure that your teams are successful. So, the sooner we can, begin to identify that person, even through the selection process, the more likely you are to be successful, both in getting into that final 10, but also during the program as well.
Rest assured, it's not Nick and I that are going to be making the decisions on how you work within Boeing. We are the facilitators.
The other thing I would add to that, on a smaller scale, we had a session on one of the days where we were looking at supply chain and procurement. And we were going through a particularly tough time at that point to get some raw materials. We were put in touch with somebody in procurement in Seattle with Boeing, who then put us on at somebody in St. Louis. We actually ended up getting help from somebody in Sheffield. So we started in Seattle and we ended up about 30 miles west of where I'm sitting. So, but that's the sort of engagement you can get. If you start talking to people, you'll just get help. So I can concur that the people you're engaging with do want to engage with you as well. It's not a one-way thing.
Absolutely. And they're involved at the selection stage, but also straight as soon as we start the program, right? We have some very intense industry partner weeks at the very beginning, and we have them so that you can meet everybody. You can start conversations from day one and continue them throughout the 12 weeks. So that's kind of how we structure the program. It makes the most sense.
Just one more quick thing is, I mean, the champions that we've spoken to, this is a highlight of their job. Like, they are so excited to speak with you all. And, you know, it's not to say that their day-to-day jobs are boring by any means, but you guys give it a fresh thought and a fresh perspective that they might have not thought about. And they get to geek out about something that they personally love and do every single day with people who are innovating and finding new cutting edge solutions to their pain points. I mean, you know, it's not to say that they're, you would think it's normally an added ask that they're ticking a box, but we've seen in the most recent cohort, I'm getting emails all the time of how can I get involved and how can I help, because this sounds like a super fun and exciting opportunity. So it is because of you all that they're really excited.
Thanks, Jackie. We've got a question here, a specific question, but it's around sustainability as well. So I think it's worth answering from Felipe. We are focused on airport technology to boost sustainability and productivity as a way to create infrastructure by knowledge and data. This way, the airplanes will be where they have to be, flying instead of uncongested ground operations and delays. Will this sort of technology be aligned for your program?
Yes, I think the answer, you know, the short answer is yes, potentially. I think the thing to keep in mind is to think about, how does Boeing help you? So if you can be really specific about why, you know, why would you want to be on a Boeing program and not a more generic, you know, travel type program? So or you know, or you know, for example, our colleagues over at IAG on their, you know, on their program, for example, would be the one that would come to mind. So, you know, be very specific about what you're doing. And the other thing I would say to you is go take a look at our portfolio in this regard as well, and see how you might align with one of the teams that we have in there, because I think that would be really important.
Absolutely. We've got a question from David coming in. Is it possible to get introductions to the Boeing network and to get help identifying the correct sector of the Boeing network, even if you're not selected as part of the cohort?
We will do as much as we can. We, you know, obviously, you know, our cohort have to be our priority. You know, but if you get in touch with the portfolio team, you know, set up a session to have a chat. And, you know, I think that we do try to help everyone, but we also need to be mindful of both your time and that of our colleagues, because, you know, we don't want to waste your time. We can give you as much advice as we can in a quick chat, but, you know, again, the more specific that you can be on the ask, you know, the more that we'll be able to help you.
Amazing, thanks, Nick. Investment question: does the money count towards state aid?
No. It's money direct from the Boeing company.
Amazing, thank you. Okay, then another question around themes. My startup fits under more than one theme. How do I choose which one I should pick? Can I select multiple? I'd say select the one that fits best, but Nick, do you have any insights into that?
No, again, just, you know, select the one that you think is best. I will say that whenever we get into the selection process, we do actually, you know, look at recategorizing, you know, based on some of the things that we see coming through, and that's really in order to help us be able to compare teams that are maybe tackling a similar problem might be in a very different way, or if we start to see, which we typically do see, little groups of companies that are all kind of clustered around the same kind of focus area. So we will do that anyway. Don't overstress about it. It is, it won't be a deal breaker. If we think that from our perspective you fit somewhere better, we'll just move you across. So don't stress too much about that.
Thank you. Yes, definitely don't. Just have a look, see what fits best, and pick that. We can discuss further once we actually connect with you. Relocation question, do you have to be in London for the duration of the program? No, you don't. We are expecting, of course, a level of commitment. This could be either from the founder himself, herself, or a decision maker within the startup, somebody who will be building these relationships with corporate partners, industry partners. To be present for in-person content, we'll have a better idea of that shortly, when that will be, how that will look like. It's not London necessarily, it's kind of across the UK. So keep that in mind as well. Visa question, will I need a visa to come to the UK? Do you help with visa applications? We will assess that case by case, but given the short amount of time that you're actually coming to the UK, it's not always the case that you'll need a visa or a business visa. So we'll have to look into that, but that's something we'll work with you on once you get kind of into the shortlist, once we're already looking at you being part of the final cohort.
And just to add to that, we are also assessing the COVID-19 pandemic and scenarios country by country. So again, it's case by case. We understand and we're cognizant of the fact that, if you need to quarantine for up to 2 weeks, and if that's not possible for a one-day visit, that probably doesn't make the most sense for everyone. So we will work with you all to make sure we have the best solution for whatever, wherever you're coming from. So we're cognizant of that too.
Thanks, Jacqueline. Let me just have a little look at the other questions here. Have a little look. What is the deadline for the next cohort? The 26th of September. So you've got a few weeks to pull together your application. Again, have a very careful read of that. Take your time to apply. All right, let's have a little look here. So will we get a chance to develop POCs with a sponsor? That's already been answered, but yes, the conversations will start throughout the 12 weeks on the program. Obviously 12 weeks is not a very long time, but we're definitely hoping to kickstart those conversations and of course continue them even after the program is over. We're still in touch with you. We're still here to support you, the program team, the industry partners. And yeah. I think these are all the questions. Unless somebody else wanted to ask anything live, this is your chance. You can raise your hand or pop anything into the chat or the Q&A. So we'll give you a few minutes to do that. Let me have a little look at the other questions we had. So another broader question that we had earlier was, is there any sustainability element to this AI and autonomy cohort 3? Nick and Jacqueline, you want to answer that?
Yeah, so I will say, like originally, as I answered prior, we're looking for the best and the brightest solutions for autonomy and AI that is directly applicable to a pain point today. So going back to Nick's point around the ask, we're happy to help as many people as we possibly can with limited resources, of course, being, 2 individuals and trying to staff our team. If you have a direct insight on this customer that is buying Boeing planes, is interested in doing X, Y, Z to be more sustainable, that's extremely helpful. And that will give us insights for how we can give you proof of concepts. However, if you are telling me that you are developing an AI solution that is, going to make the aerospace ecosystem more sustainable, that's quite broad and it's very difficult to understand how to directly apply it. I struggle with that because on a personal level, I'm Danish, very passionate about sustainability, but in the aerospace ecosystem today, we have to be very clear and precise with the challenges that the aerospace ecosystem is facing. You have to be precise and refined with what asks you have, because there are a multitude of different problems and pain points to solve. So finding a directed opportunity where there's resources allocated is our priority, because we want to make sure that these POC opportunities allow you to grow and allow you to create revenue. So I will say it's not ruled out by any means or shape or form, but just look at the problems and the pain points, look at the customer landscape and try to align it there. And that will make our job significantly easier.
Definitely. And this just goes back to the application. Think it through, think where you fit best, be specific, make it easy for us to envision how we can work with you. That will make our job so much easier. It'll take you to the long list, short list, hopefully to the top 10. Be very, very clear. Yeah. So a minute to go. Thank you everyone for joining today. This Ask Us Anything session. Hopefully we've answered most of your questions. If not, we're available over office hours. You'll find more information on our website. This recording will be up on our YouTube channel if you want to rewatch it or you want to share it onwards with someone who might find this useful. Then please do. And we look forward to connecting with some of you over the next few weeks and talking to you further.